For almost 50 years, they have been the most famous cheerleaders on the planet. The white boots, the blue blouse knotted just so, the high kicks in perfect, impossible unison. The Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, America's sweethearts, not a squad, an institution. The wholesome, star-spangled, all-American dream that a whole generation of little girls grew up wanting to become. That's the image. Glamour and sisterhood and honor. The pinnacle of an entire art form. Joy in cowboy boots under stadium lights, smiling out at 80,000 people. Now let me show you what's actually holding that image up. Grown women being scolded over their weight, their faces, measured against a standard nobody will put in writing. Women who quit their jobs, move across the country, and turn down every other opportunity in their lives, all for the privilege of a paycheck that for years was smaller than the team's mascots. Women were cut after giving the best years of their lives with no reason given, because no one in this world is ever owed a reason. And through every second of it, one thing never breaks. The smile. Always the smile. So here's the question this whole video is built on, and I genuinely can't stop turning this over, is how do you take all of that? And not only that, how do you convince everyone who's watching, and most of the women living it, that it's a dream come true? Because the answer isn't an accident, it's a system. And once you see how it's built, you cannot unsee it. Today, we are exposing the darkness underneath that shiny, beautiful veneer of the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleader organization. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cult, true crime, and controversy. Now, this video is a far departure from my normal content, but I think by the end of this video, you will understand why it was something that I just could not talk about. Now, I not only binge watch every season of America's Sweetheart, I have been on the Reddits, watched the TikToks, I've been seeing all this controversy, and what always blows my mind season after season is how it just all seems to repeat itself. Every time it seems like the girls are getting what they truly deserve, it all seems to crumble again, and another controversy comes to light. And this is all coming from an organization who is so desperate to keep a positive image that they're completely unable to recognize that the people running the organization are the ones making it look the worst. But they're going to project that onto every girl they put on that field. And as an actor and performer myself, when I started watching the grueling audition process that these women go through, it feels cruel to me. These women go to a training camp and they get dressed up in the boots. They get a total makeover. They are dancing in the Star, the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. And then this dream just gets ripped from them. And mind you, this is after they've quit their job, gone across the country, have been paying to stay somewhere in Dallas for weeks, not making any income, all for the chance to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, only to get cut because they're too short. Yeah, why have girls audition if you're gonna cut them anyways? To me, it's cruel. You can see what somebody can do after 3 rounds of auditions. You don't need them to drop everything in their life for 6 weeks so you can torment them. And before we jump in, I want to be clear about what I'm doing. This is an investigative critique of the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders. I'm not here to tell you that the DCC is secretly a cult because that would just be lazy and it's not true. What I am here to do is something maybe a little more uncomfortable. Line up how this organization actually operates next to how high control groups are known to operate and ask why so many of the same gears are turning. Because here's the thing about a really effective system, nobody in it has to be a villain for it to work exactly as designed. So I want to show you the tell. This is one of the things that once you spot it, it really gives this whole game away. There's a moment in basically every episode of these shows where a young woman is given a brutal piece of feedback. Your weight, your face, your body in the uniform, your kick isn't high enough, your passe isn't square enough. And the woman will just say 2 words back.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Smiling. Always smiling. I mean, we've watched it so many times that it reads as manners, but I want to argue that it's not manners. It's a tell. And if you don't have a grasp on the expectations of what it is to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, it doesn't matter how high your kick is or if you're the best dancer they've ever seen. If you're not malleable enough, they might not book you. And if you do manage to get the job, they are going to try to break you, like we've seen them try to break countless girls who end up on that team. Now, every spring, hundreds of women come to Dallas to try out. Not from Dallas, but from the entire world now. We've got California, the Midwest, the coasts, New Zealand, Australia. They've all trained since they were small. They've devoted their lives to this art, this athletic precision. Many have danced at an elite level already, NBA squads, college teams, conservatories, and they're all chasing 36 spots. 36, that is the whole team. And the 2 people deciding everyone's fate aren't strangers to this process. Kelly Finglass cheered for the DCC herself from 1984 to 1989, and Jerry Jones brought her into leadership. She's been the director since 1991, for 35 years. Judy Trammell was on the squad in the early 80s and has been head choreographer for roughly 4 decades. These are not outsiders imposing a standard. They are the standard, grown up and handed the keys. And I think that matters, and I think it's a part of why the system is so airtight, because the people running it survived it, and they believe that that system made them. So they don't believe there's any reason to change that system. Now, the first thing to understand is the scarcity is the product. The opening line of the whole Netflix series from a cheerleader is that you have to look like a supermodel but perform like an athlete. How do those demands really go together? It's like impossibility becomes the point. If almost no one can clear the bar, then clearing it means everything. The harder it is to get in, the more you'll give everything to stay. That's not Cheer Squad insight. It's the oldest recruiting tool there is. The dream isn't the reward for the work. The dream is what gets you to do the work for almost nothing. And just hold on that thought because we're going to watch it pay for itself. Now, here's the cost rookies pay that the cameras do show, but they never quite name, because the DCC recruits nationally. Making this team often means that you're going to have to move your whole life to Dallas, Texas. Ari McClure moved from California to chase this dream. Women leave jobs, leave cities, leave the people who anchor them, all to attend an audition gauntlet and then a training camp with no guarantee they'll make it past the next cut. So I want to be fair here because this organization has an answer for this. The official line is, of course, well, it's part-time, hourly work, and rehearsals are mostly in the evenings. Designed, they say, to accommodate your real job or school. And now on paper, that's true, but we're going to flip that piece of paper over. We schedule around your day job is also a quiet admission. This thing doesn't pay enough to be your day job. The flexibility isn't generosity. It's the shape low pay takes. And most other NFL squads recruit locally, so the relocation, the uprooting, the all-in gamble, That's heavier here than almost anywhere else. I'm not going to tell you no other teams ask anything of its dancers, but I will tell you this. The DCC has built a pipeline where a woman is expected to rearrange her entire existence around a maybe, and the prestige of the brand is doing all of the work of making that sound reasonable instead of completely insane. When the institution risks nothing and the individual risks everything, and then everybody calls that an honor, that's worth examining. And we'll see that exact ratio again when we get to the money. Now, if you do make it through auditions, you reach training camp, and the shows have always sold this as the crucible. Reality begins to set in, the cuts begin, women who've done everything right get sent home. And the defining feature of the cut across both shows, Making the Team and American Sweethearts, across 20 years is this: the women don't usually get told why. And then Kelly has the audacity to say, I guess they want more feedback, and I guess they want more positive reinforcement. Of fucking course they do, Kelly. Ari McClure, who'd moved from California, who'd made it deep into the process, gets cut. And the reason, delivered between Charlotte Jones, the Cowboys' executive vice president and chief brand officer, and Kelly, is essentially that Ari doesn't fit the others. Her stature. She's too short for the line. On the other hand, Kelly has that similar heights help the famous kick line look so uniform. So which is it? We have no height requirement, but also you were cut for your height. Those are both things on the record that we have seen with our own eyes. They can't both be true, and the gap between them is exactly where the power lives. But then Kelly wants to go ahead and blame Reddit posts responsible for the girls' insecurities. No, I think you continue to insult them about things that they most likely cannot change. Now, this is the move I want you to clock because it's everywhere from here on out. The rule that would let you measure yourself against it. Now, how can I improve? I want to plan how to get better. I want to hold myself to the standard that is worthy of the DCC, but that doesn't exist. The standard is enforced invisibly at whatever moment of judgment by people who never have to show their own reasoning why. Because you can't appeal a rule that isn't written down. You can only say, yes, ma'am, and then go home. Say you make it. The uniform is waiting, and the uniform is the genius of the whole thing. The blue blouse, those white shorts, the boots. It has not fundamentally changed in 50 years. Even I think it is iconic. But here's why it's not just nostalgia, it's architecture. The uniform is a fixed object, okay? Once it's fitted to your body doesn't get to change. The garment never has any flex. You do. And you know what? If your body does change, you're not getting another uniform. That's the one you get for your entire tenure on the team. The cultural critic Anne Helen Peterson has put this better than I can. The uniform, she wrote, becomes a defensible means of exclusion. If your body doesn't look right in it, the problem isn't the cut of the shorts, because other girls look good in those shorts. The problem is probably your body. Because if you can't dance in stiff cowboy boots, the problem isn't the boots, it's gonna be you. The object is sacred, but you are adjustable. And the adjusting is constant. Across the series, Kelly is shown scrutinizing the women's appearance, perceived weight gain, how they photograph. If they're not done up in perfect hair and perfect makeup, they give girls makeovers every season, for goodness sakes, because they think they'd look better if they did things a different way. Now, this is the part where the cult lens stops being a metaphor and it starts to be a bit of a checklist, because control of the body is one of the most reliable markers of a high control environment. Not because anyone's cruel for sport, but because when the institution owns the standard for your physical self, it owns you in a way that a paycheck never could.
I have not seen progress in the fitness since we last talked. Our kind of collective concern is, are you utilizing the resources that we've gone out of our way to provide you?
Yes, ma'am.
So why are you not responding to Janelle's texts?
I know that she sent me a doctor's request. I just know you've never really had a weight issue, so I'm kind of leaning towards the women who have.
It's totally 100% fair to say that, but at the same time, I just wanted to help you. And if you didn't want to take it, you should have let me know.
I don't like the situation I'm in right now, so I was just kind of sensitive to it. I'm sorry.
I feel like we're at a point where you really need to take a real mature approach to this as a job.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't think you're ready. I think there could be a uniform for you, but I also don't want you to crumble. I almost feel like, to me, you look like you're under such pressure that you can't be yourself.
I just don't like being in here. It's kind of scary.
What's the worst thing that could happen?
I go home.
I'm prepared for that, and you need to be prepared for that too. My concern is communication and honesty.
Yes. I think it was just the topic. I really do.
I think you need to develop who's Victoria and what's meaningful to you. Okay.
Now, the following is grounded entirely in Victoria Kalina's own public statements on the series and in interviews. The person who said the quiet part out loud was Victoria Kalina. A legacy. Her mother, Tina, was a DCC. Victoria grew up inside this world. She made the team, and on camera, she did something almost no one in this organization does. She told the truth about the cost. She spoke openly about depression and a serious eating disorder. She described the pressure of, in her words, getting back into the baby uniform. And eventually, given the choice to come back for a final season, she walked. She left the dream she'd been raised to want. And I think the most damning detail isn't even about just Victoria, it's about the silence around her. She was the one who said it. The cameras catch most of the others keeping it zipped tight, smiling through it, which tells you the pressure isn't a Victoria problem. It's an environment problem. And she was just the one brave enough to name it on the way out. So when a system can take the most talented, most devoted person in the room and convince her the problem is her body and not the room itself, that's not a beauty standard. That's a control mechanism wearing a beauty standards clothes. Now, whenever a DC gets any feedback, the obligatory response, no matter how devastating that feedback is yes, ma'am. It is obligatory, their word. There is one acceptable reply to being judged, and it's gratitude. Now, here's where it starts to get interesting because a new generation of these women have started very politely to want something more. And you can watch the institution kind of short circuit when they ask for it. They want to know why they were cut. They want specific developmental feedback. They want a little positive enforcement, which to literally everyone watching at home is just like, yeah, that's how a healthy workplace works, right? That's literally the bare minimum a good manager gives you so you know what to work on, so you know how to get better. But inside this world, wanting that reads as a character flaw. Watch the Kadiana Garza thread. She stepped up into a group leader role when a veteran was suspended, and then she was suddenly gone. Kelly's explanation to the camera was, and I'm quoting closely, that they'd had one conversation of honest feedback, and maybe she didn't like that conversation. Kadiana's side, that she'd felt unsupported, that she felt like, in her words, just a body. So these are two completely different stories about the same conversation, and only one of those people gets the camera and the benefit of the doubt. And the older guard names the divide out loud. Tina Kalina, Victoria's mom, a former DCC herself, said the younger generation looks at this as a job, where the old-timers looked at it as a privilege. She meant it as a lament. Now, I'd argue that she accidentally explained the entire business model, because the second these women do treat it like a job with the feedback, the fairness, and the pay a job implies, the spell just kind of breaks. In a healthy organization, why was I cut? Why was I fired? Is a reasonable question with an answer. In a high control group, it's insubordination dressed as a question. So I wonder which one this is. Because it's about how the organization responds when a dancer is in genuine distress, I'm going to be as careful as I can here. Veteran Sophie Loffer reported being groped by a photographer on the field. Police didn't pursue it, citing a lack of evidence, and Kelly's on-camera response to Sophie's distress was to offer that she sit out the game. If she's that upset, she doesn't need to be dancing. Now, you can read that as kindness, but if you listen to the logic underneath, the dancer's feelings are framed as the thing that might interfere with the performance because the show must go on. And so if you can't handle being assaulted, then you can just step off the field, okay? The institutions have to stay centered even in the moment a woman is telling you, no, I was violated. Can we please hold this person accountable? But heaven forbid there's some kind of salt scandal with the DCC, even though it is an unsaid rule that the women need to be applicable to the male gaze. Now, let's talk about the part that makes the honor rhetoric impossible to take at face value. Let's talk about what they were paid to be the most recognizable cheerleaders in America, dancing for the most valuable franchise in the NFL, a team worth somewhere around $9 to $10 billion. In 2018, a former DCC named Erica Wilkins sued. In her suit, she alleged that she was paid roughly $7 to $8 an hour with a flat $200 a game, and that she'd made about $16,500 in her final year. And here's the number that went around the world. The team's mascot, Rowdy, a guy in a costume, reportedly made around $65,000 a year. The dancers, the literal face of the brand, the very girls that made this entire organization, the Dallas Cowboys organization itself, one of the most popular franchises in the entire world, were making a fraction of what the mascot was making. Because let's be honest, a lot of us are going to those Dallas Cowboy games to get a glimpse at the cheerleaders. The cheerleaders drove the fan base. Now, the suit settled out of court in 2019. Gameplay would double for $200 and hourly went to $12. Better, but still by 2024, veterans were describing about $15 an hour and $500 a game. But then at the end of the second Netflix season, after a lot of backlash, there was a headline, a 400% raise that was won by a handful of veterans who quietly organized for it. Jada McLean told the New York Times that it could mean up to $75 an hour, around $75,000 a year. Genuinely life-changing, and they earn every cent of it. But you had to read the fine print. There would be no health insurance for the women whose entire job is a high-impact physical risk. The jump splits that have blown out veterans' hips and put them in surgery, not covered by insurance. And I want you to hear how the people at the top talk about all this because it's the same script for 45 years. Charlotte Jones on camera essentially defended the low pay by saying that the women don't come here for the money. They come here for something bigger than themselves. Sisterhood, the passion for dance. And back in the 80s, when the cheerleaders asked for a raise and were turned down, the director at the time, Suzanne Mitchell, wrote them a letter about legacy, that the DCC are like America herself, not perfect, but the best this world's got. Okay. Yeah, thanks for the lip service, but it's not a good enough excuse to underpay women who are essentially ruining their bodies for free for you. 45 years apart, it's the same move. When the women ask for money, the institution answers with meaning. You can't be in it for the money is the most expensive sentence ever spoken to an underpaid woman because she's the one who ends up paying for it in the long run. Oh, and one more because it's almost too on the nose. The famous swimsuit calendar. The cheerleaders historically got no royalties from it and reportedly had to buy their own copies to give it to family. They're the product. They are photographed and sold, and they don't get a share in the sale. So if you were building a list of how a group extracts value from devoted members while returning as little as possible, you would struggle to design it better than this. Now, here's a rule that's real and written down. You can only be a DCC for 5 years total, and every single year, even the veterans, women who've represented this team across the globe, have to re-audition for their own jobs against the rookies. And every year you start over, proving that you deserve to exist on this team. So just think about what that does to a person and to a group. It guarantees that no one ever feels safe. It guarantees a constant churn of fresh, grateful 22-year-olds to replace anyone who ages, anyone who asks questions, or costs too much. And it means loyalty only ever flows in one direction. You owe the institution everything for 5 years. And then the clock runs out and you're alumni, and the machine just keeps running without you exactly as designed. Which brings us to Karley Swindel, a 4-year veteran, a group leader, and by every account, a fan favorite, and exactly the kind of success story the organization markets. She was set to return for her 5th and final year. She'd just gotten married, her teammates danced thunderstruck at her wedding, and then, in the season that's going on right now, the 2026 selection, she was cut. And she seemed to confirm it herself by reposting the hashtag that the fans had started. Justice for Karley. Now, a fan account claimed that veterans were forbidden from comforting her and told to, quote, pull it together for photos. A current member, Marissa Leshber, publicly denied this, but I'm reporting it here as an unconfirmed social media claim that a teammate is disputing. I'm not trying to state this as fact because there's a lot of controversy going on around this right now. And now, allegedly, a Reddit account claimed that Karley was actually cut because she had gone up the chain to complain about people higher up being abusive in some way towards her and the women. I don't know exactly what kind of abuse was going on, but Karley did clarify in a DM that yes, this is the situation. She was the one who spoke out about an injustice, and she was essentially fired for it. She's given the organization her 20s. She becomes a leader. She gets held up as the dream that other girls need to aspire to, and is shown the door in the most public possible way, with, yet again, no explanation owed to her or anyone right at the threshold of her final season. And the sad thing is, it's not even a scandal. That is the system working normally and intentionally how it was designed. And that is the scary part. That cut isn't a malfunction. It's a feature. It's a machine that always has somebody newer, cheaper, and more grateful. And then they never have to be fair to the person who has already poured their life and soul into the organization. So I want to bring this all together and not just give you a list of grievances. Now, researchers who study high control groups point to a recognizable set of mechanics. So when it comes to the DCC, we have manufactured scarcity and a transformational dream. 36 spots, hundreds of hopefuls, supermodels who perform like athletes. The harder to enter, the more you'll sacrifice to stay. We've also got total commitment and individual risk. Uproot your life for a maybe, while the institution risks absolutely nothing. They control your body, the fixed uniform, the weight scrutiny. The standard owns your physical self. And then we have these obedience rituals and suppressed dissent. The obligatory yes, ma'am, and wanting to know why is treated as a flaw. Not to mention public embarrassment and shaming. There are these unwritten, unappealable rules like no height requirement, but also getting cut for your height. Power is going to live in that gap. Meaning is also offered in place of material fairness. You're not in it for the money for 45 years running. And then there's also this engineered disposability, the 5-year clock, the annual re-auditions, the unexplained cut. No one is ever safe. You are always replaceable. This isn't a pile of coincidence. This is an operating system. And I want to be really precise about what I am and am not trying to say because I do believe that it matters. Again, I'm not saying the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders is a cult. It isn't. You can leave. The doors are open. Nobody's hiding anything from law enforcement. And I'm genuinely not saying that Kelly Finglass and Judy Trammell are villains necessarily. I think it is entirely possible that they do love these women in their own strange way and believe all the way down that they are protecting something excellent and rare. They are people who came up through a system and survived it. And as with any high control group, those types of people are often its most sincere defenders. It's not necessarily hypocrisy, it's just how the system propagates. The whole point of my channel really is that you almost never need a villain to get a harmful outcome. You need a system whose incentives quietly reward the harm and enough good people who don't question the design. And that is literally the DCC. The incentives reward keeping pay low and calling it honor. They reward unwritten standards because unwritten standards can't be challenged. They reward churn because churn keeps everyone grateful. And every individual decision inside that, every cut, every note, every yes ma'am, can be made by a perfectly decent person and still add up to something that grinds young women down and spits them out at 26 with a smile they were trained to keep. And here's the genuinely hopeful part. The reason I don't end these videos with you feeling like you're in despair, systems can be redesigned. I mean, the 400% raise proves it. That didn't happen because the institution had a change of heart. It happened because a handful of brave women decided to treat it like a job. They organized and they made the old rhetoric impossible to keep saying with a straight face. Write those standards down. Pay people like the billion-dollar assets they are. Tell someone why she was cut. Give her health insurance, for God's sake. None of that ends a tradition. It just ends the part where the tradition runs on other people's silence. It ends this pattern of people being exploited for their looks and the abilities that they have curated and mastered for their entire lives. That alone deserves fair pay and respect. Kelly and Judy seem to lack true respect for the cheerleaders. So the next time you watch one of these shows, and honestly, like I go on a binge fest, I love them. But just try to watch for the smile after the hard note, the yes ma'am, and ask yourself whether that's a young woman with good manners or a system that has trained an entire generation to be grateful for the boot. I know which one I think it is, but I want to know what you guys think, especially if you've lived inside a world like this, whether it's cheer or anything else, where the honor was supposed to be the paycheck. So just let me know in the comments because I definitely read them. And I think if any DCC or hopeful or alumni comes across this video and they're seeing other people share their story, maybe it can empower them as well. I want to create an environment where we lift each other up and recognize that it's okay to feel grateful to be a part of something and also recognize that you deserve more for being a part of something. Anyways, guys, I hope that resonates. I think what the cheerleaders do is incredible. Their stamina, their hard work, their dedication, their devotion. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in today. Stay safe out there, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. I'll see you in my next one soon. Bye.